Today we are going to cover the story of Job. He was a man that was blessed with family, livestock, and was known as the greatest man from the East. Job was blameless, an upright man before God. He was righteous and just. Therefore the sons of God came before the throne of God, and the Lord boasted of Job's righteousness. Satan, on the other hand, did not believe Job was truly virtuous. He thought that Job was only loyal to God because he had been given everything. Satan believed that if God allowed him to take away his fortune and family, Job would curse God's name. So the Lord permitted Satan to do as he said. Will Job remain faithful to God and hold to his beliefs? Will Job pass the test? We shall see. But for now, let's analyze the book and give some background information on the text. Background and authorship. Job was from the land of Uz. It is thought to have been along the border between Palestine and Arabia. Uz extended all the way from North Edom towards the Euphrates River. The territory skirted the caravan route between Babylon and Egypt. In a postscript to the book of Job in the Septuagint, ancient tradition identified Job with Joab in the book of Genesis. If this is the same man, Job was the second king of Edom. Names of places mentioned in the book seem to give it a setting amongst the descendants of Esau. The book itself has the atmosphere of primitive times and seems to have its setting amongst the early tribes descended from Abraham along the northern border of Arabia. The author of the book is unknown. Ancient Jewish tradition ascribed the book to Moses. Moses might have heard the story from one of Job's descendants, and since he was a descendant of Abraham, Moses could have recognized him as being within the circle of God's revelation. The traditional dating of the book has been placed in patriarchal times during the 16th century BC or in Solomonic days in the 10th century BC. Modern critics assign a much later date to the book of Job. They believe it comes from the 6th to 3rd century BC. Plot summary. As mentioned earlier, the book of Job is about a man whose faith is put to the test. He endures terrible trials against his livestock, his property, his children, and his own body. The book begins by giving us some background information on the man. Job was from the land of Uz. He was blameless, feared God, and turned from evil. He was the greatest man from the East. He had 3 daughters, 7 sons, 7,000 sheep, 3,000 camels, 500 oxen, 500 donkeys, and many servants. In chapter 1, the sons of God gather together and present themselves before God. Satan is amongst them, so many theologians believe that the sons of God are angels. They are also mentioned in the book of Genesis. God asks Satan, "Where have you been?" And Satan responds from roaming to and fro across the earth. God asks Satan, "Have you seen my servant Job, who is blameless and an upright man?" Satan responds, "Yes, I've seen him, but you put a hedge around him and his household, so I can't touch him, and you've blessed him greatly." Satan challenges God and says, "Stretch out your hand and touch all he has, and he will curse you to your face." God accepts the challenge and allows Satan to touch all that Job has, but does not permit Satan to attack Job's health. Satan incited rival tribes against Job, and they plundered his livestock. Then fire fell from the sky and burned up Job's sheep and his servants. Lastly, while his sons and daughters were eating and drinking at their oldest brother's house, a great wind came that knocked down the house and killed all of Job's children. When Job heard the news, he tore his robe, shaved his head, and worshipped God. He said, "Naked I came from the womb, and naked I shall return. The Lord gave, and the Lord has taken away. Blessed be the name of the Lord." And in all this, Job did not sin or charge God with a wrong. Shortly after, the sons of God presented themselves before God, and once again Satan was amongst them. God asked Satan, "Did you see my servant Job? He still held to his integrity, although I allowed you to destroy him without reason." Satan answered, "How about skin for skin? Stretch out your hand and touch his bone and his flesh, and he will curse you to your face." And the Lord permitted Satan to do as he said, but he did not permit Satan to take his life. Satan struck Job with loathsome boils from the soles of his feet to the crown of his head. We don't exactly know what this disease was, but some suggest it may have been some form of leprosy or elephantitis. These were some of the most horrible and painful diseases known in that part of the world. Afterwards, Job's wife tells him to curse God and die. It's understandable why she would be so upset, but Job remains faithful and does not sin. Job does, however, curse the day that he was born. 3 friends come to comfort Job, and at first they say nothing when they see his condition. Later they have a philosophical discourse with Job, and they try to figure out why this happened to him. The main consensus among them is that Job must have sinned, and his fate is a consequence of that sin. Job, however, denies any wrongdoing and believes he does not deserve this judgment. As a reader, however, you realize that he does not go through this trial as a punishment of sin. It was a test of Job's faith. Job then calls his friend miserable comforters, and he wallows in despair. A fourth friend comes to visit Job as well. He is a younger man and has remained quiet until now, but feels he must give his insight on the situation. This man comes across as a bit pompous and self-righteous, but he does justify God's position and cautions Job about blaming God for what happened to him. Finally, God speaks to Job in a whirlwind, but he doesn't answer all of Job's questions. Instead, the Lord speaks of his magnitude and sovereignty. God asks, "Where were you when I laid the foundation of the earth?" The Lord gives evidence of his knowledge and authority, and Job repents in dust and ashes. In the final chapter, God is angry with Job's three friends for giving bad advice, but Job prays for them, and they make a burnt offering to cover up their sin. As for Job, his friends and family bring gifts to Job, and his fortunes are restored. He is then given twice as much as he had before, and God blesses him with 3 more daughters and 7 more sons. Job dies an old man and full of days. On the screen are the lyrics to the Song of Job by the band Enoch and the Watchers. It gives a quick summary to the book of Job in a melodious way. If you're looking for a short, condensed summary of the book, stop the video and read the lyrics to the song. Analysis. The book of Job is part of the poetry and wisdom literature of the Old Testament. This includes Job, Psalms, Proverbs, Ecclesiastes, and the Song of Songs. In the Hebrew Bible, these books are not grouped together as they were in the Septuagint, and in most of today's Bibles. Of these 5 books, 4 are considered wisdom, while Psalms is excluded. Characteristics of Hebrew poetry. English poetry usually rhymes, but Hebrew poetry does not. Hebrew poetry has imagery, metaphors, similes, hyperboles, personification, etc. Hebrew poetry has parallelism, or contrasting thoughts. Example, the way of the righteous man versus the way of the evildoers. The Hebrew word for wisdom has a much broader meaning than the English word for wisdom. For example, the skill in making things like the work of a craftsman would be considered wisdom. Wisdom in Hebrew encompasses the willingness and ability to rightly perceive. Wisdom literature is poetic in form but practical in content. It's more like an instructional manual for life. The book of Job is wisdom literature because it deals with the central issue of faith and suffering. Disputation, also known as verbal controversy, is displayed in the book of Job when the 3 friends try to figure out why these terrible events happened to Job. Job is a magnificent book that deals with the problem of suffering. If God is good and just, why do people suffer? Why do bad things happen to good people? Here are some possible explanations. Number 1, it's due to sin. There is now evil in the world. In the beginning, God created a world without sin. It was not God's original intent. Explanation number 2 for suffering. It may be a test of faith during troubling times. And explanation number 3 for suffering, a lesson for man and the angels as a case example. Job's friends. Eliphaz the Temanite was a descendant of Esau, an Edomite. Bildad the Shushite was a descendant of Abraham and Keturah. Zophar the Naamathite was an unknown origin or locality. All 3 friends were probably nomad princes. Elihu the Buzite, the younger man who visits him at the end, was a descendant of Abraham's brother Nohor. Behemoth and Leviathan. These are 2 unknown animals mentioned near the end of the book. Are these dinosaurs? Could they have walked the earth at the same time as man? According to most science classes taught today, dinosaurs died out 65 million years ago. Based on the book of Job, these 2 creatures appear to be like dinosaurs. If this is the case, it gives credence to an alternate explanation. The behemoth described in Job 40. Behold, behemoth, which I made as I made you. He eats grass like an ox. Behold, his strength is in his loins, and his power in the muscles of his belly. He makes his tail stiff like cedar. His bones are tubes of bronze, his limbs like bars of iron. The Leviathan is a sea creature and has traits of a dragon. He is described in Job 41 and Job 3. Can you draw out Leviathan with a fish hook? Can you fill his skin with harpoons? Remember the battle. You will not do it again. Around his teeth is terror. His back is made of rows of shields. His sneezings flash forth light. Out of his mouth go flaming torches. Sparks of fire leap forth. Out of his nostrils comes forth smoke. His breath kindles coals, and a flame comes forth from his mouth. This concludes the video on the Book of Job. Please subscribe and hit the like button before you go. If you are interested in using the video for educational purposes, there are links below to lesson plans you can use in the classroom. To complete this video, I will show famous quotes from the Book of Job. Thank you for your time. I hope you learned something of value. Ciao, sayonara, adieu. And the Lord said to Satan, "From where do you come?" So Satan answered the Lord and said, "From going to and fro on the earth, and from walking back and forth on it." Job 1:7. Have you not made a hedge around him, around his household, and around all that he has on every side? Job 1:10. Satan speaking to God about Job. Naked I came from my mother's womb, and naked shall I return there. The Lord gave, and the Lord has taken away. Blessed be the name of the Lord. Job 1:21. Job's response after all that he had is taken from him. Skin for skin. All that a man has he will give for his life. But stretch out your hand and touch his bones and his flesh, and he will curse you to your face. Job 2, verses 4 through 5. Satan speaking to God. Curse God and die. Job 2:9. Job's wife speaking. For the thing that I fear comes upon me, and what I dread befalls me. Job 3:25. Wisdom is with the aged, and understanding in length of days. Job 12:12. Worthless physicians are you all. Job 13:4. Job speaking to his friends. My bone clings to my skin and to my flesh, and I have escaped by the skin of my teeth. Job 19:20. For I know that my Redeemer lives, and at the last he will stand upon the earth. And after my skin has been thus destroyed, yet in my flesh I shall see God, and my eyes shall behold. Job 19, verses 25 through 26. Early in the book, resurrection after death is left in question, but here Job speaks confidently that there is life after death. Where were you when I laid the foundation of the earth? Job 38:4. God speaking to Job. Do you give the horse his might? He laughs at fear and is not dismayed. He does not turn back from the sword. When the trumpet sounds, he says, Aha! He smells the battle from afar, the thunder of the captains and the shouting. Job 39, verses 19 through 25. God on horses. And the Lord blessed the latter days more than his beginning. He had also 7 sons and 3 daughters. In the land there was no woman so beautiful as Job's daughters. And after this Job lived 140 years, and saw his sons and his sons' sons 4 generations. And Job died an old man and full of days. Job 42, verses 12 through 17. Job after the trial and the testing.